everyone, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to Little Mountain Ranch. Welcome back to my kitchen. I'm really happy to have you here with me today. Today we are going to make something which is new to me, and that is oxtail soup. We make oxtail soup out of the tail of a beef, and I'm also going to be adding some of the cheek meat in to the soup as well. Our friend Matt, who is a butcher, came out to our property yesterday and butchered 5 hogs for us and a steer. It was a very long day, but he actually had it all done by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The helper that Matt brought with him, his name was Mark, and he is actually a chef, and he shared with me that oxtail soup, because he was asking me if I wanted the tail off of the steer. And I was like, oh, what would I do with it? And he said that you can make a really awesome soup with it. And it's called oxtail soup. And I've heard of oxtail soup before, but I never connected the two, that it was actually the tail off of a beef. So he also said that adding the cheek meat, because the cheek meat is quite fatty, adds a really nice flavor to the soup. So we're gonna do that. The other thing that we're going to do today is to make some homemade ice cream in my ice cream maker. So I'm gonna bring you down and show you my ice cream maker. It is a Whitner, that's the brand name, and it's a self-contained unit. This ice cream maker is quite the investment, but the reason that I decided to invest in it is because it saves me a lot of time. I can just throw all my ingredients into it and have ice cream within 60 minutes, which is fantastic. So I'm going to show you how I use that and make ice cream with it. I have some sage, oregano, and basil down in my freeze dryer that we're going to bring up in just a minute, and I'm going to get those jarred up for winter, for our herbs for the winter. What else are we going to do today? We're going to make some basil iced tea, and we'll probably take a wander down in the garden, and I'll show you what's happening in the garden. We did finally get some rain yesterday, which was absolutely a godsend. It happened to rain on the day that we had the butcher out, but it was actually okay because we just used the undercover spot by our barn to do the butchering. But the nice thing about that is it did keep the temperature nice and cool, which is awesome. It looks like Ireland outside right now. It's all green and lush and so beautiful, and I'm very grateful because I was honestly getting a little bit nervous with all the fires that are burning in Canada right now. It was getting steadily drier and drier and drier here each passing day, and I was really concerned about forest fire. So at least this rain has dampened the risk a little bit. I think what we're going to do before we get into doing the oxtail soup is we are gonna go grab the herbs from the freeze dryer. I'm so excited. We have the drywallers. So we did do all the boarding, but we have the person who's gonna come do all the mudding, the taping and the mudding for us tomorrow, which is so incredibly exciting. So I will be able to have my laundry room back again, a family room. I cannot wait. This has been a very long project. So we have our basil, sage, oregano, and more oregano. I have a nice workspace set up right beside my freeze dryer, but with it running down there doing its defrost, it is very noisy, so we will get everything jarred up over here. So when I am jarring up my herbs, I'm not going to crush them down very much, just because not crushing them helps them to retain their flavor a little bit better than if I were to crush them. You can see how nice and dry they are. If you are interested in a freeze dryer, Harvest Right, which is the kind of freeze dryer that I have, is having a sale right now for $500 off, which is a pretty good deal, and I think it's one of the best sales that they have all year. I do have a link down below if you are interested in getting one. I certainly have never regretted it. Now that summer's here, my freeze dryer is running all the time. So all I'm gonna do is pack these down a little bit. Like I said, I'm gonna try not to break them up too much. These smell as good as they did fresh. So what I am going to do here is add an oxygen absorber. I'm just going to be doing these in jars because I'm planning on using these within 12 months. If I was going to be doing them for longer term storage, I would put them in Mylar. Okay, so what I'm gonna do before I open up my oxygen absorbers is I'm gonna get all of these jarred up, and then I can open that up, pull my oxygen absorbers out, get them in the jars, and seal that back up right away so that I don't ruin the other oxygen absorbers that I have in there. So this one is sage, totally dry. Smells so good. We're gonna go down to the high tunnel and pick some fresh basil to make iced tea with. I don't remember where I heard about making iced tea, basil iced tea from, but I know it came across my feed at some point in the last little bit, and I thought that it sounded like it would probably be delicious. So thought I would give it a try. Basil is definitely my favorite herb. Like I said, my plan for these is for next winter. We'll just use fresh herbs all summer. And then when I am going to open up a jar of these to use, I will probably just run it through my food processor. It's going to probably bring it down to about there for the actual amount it is, and then I'll just put it in a small jar and I'll use that up fairly quickly. Alrighty, let's open up. Which side should I open it on? Let's do it over here. I'd probably go with smaller oxygen absorbers for these jars, but this is what I have. So this is what I am going to use. So this is the one thing that I will reuse canning lids for, is for sealing jars like this. I'm not vacuum sealing these or anything like that, just the oxygen absorber and the nice tight lid, and then I'll store them in my pantry where it's cool and dark. Now I'm going to reseal my bag with my oxygen absorbers in it. I'm gonna set this on probably 3 because it is not very thick plastic. And then I'll seal that back up. And there we go. Now it's, oh, well, it's not quite sealed up yet. I guess I'll turn it up a little bit higher. Let's go for a 4. Okay, I think that one worked. Let's check. Yep, all sealed now. So I'll put those back down in my freeze dryer room. Take my sealer back down, tidy up our mess here, and then we'll get into our preparation for our oxtail soup. My ice cream maker is pretty noisy, so I'll wait and do that just before we're gonna go outside, and then we'll run it while we're outside, so it's not too loud for you guys. I wanted to thank you guys so much for your kindness on my last video where I shared that my nephew had passed away. Just the outpouring of kindness was just so wonderful. It made me really happy that I decided to get back in front of the camera and make videos, because it just helped to make me feel less alone. So many of you shared of having experienced similar losses. And I am running a fundraiser right now for my sister and her family to help to cover the memorial costs. And I will put a link down in the pinned comment if you would like to donate to that. 100% of all of the donations are going straight to my sister and her family. So thank you to all of you who have already donated. I cannot tell you how much my sister and her family appreciate it. It's helped to ease like at least a tiny little fraction of the suffering that they're currently enduring. So thank you so much for that. Okay, the first step in making this soup is to rinse off this meat because there's still some blood on it, and then we're gonna soak it in vinegar. This was at the recommendation of the chef who was here yesterday. So we're going to take this and give it a rinse with some cold water and then put some vinegar in it. This is about half and half vinegar to water. We'll set our timer for 5 minutes. So what we're gonna do with this after it's sat for 5 minutes is rinse it off really well. Then I'm going to cut it all up and put it into my Dutch oven and fry it up till it's nice and brown. Then I'm going to cover it with bone broth. Just giving this a sloosh around just to get all of that extra blood off of there. We do like to eat as much of the animal as we possibly can. I do draw the lines in certain places. I was watching a video yesterday where they were doing castration, calf castration, and they fried up the testicles and ate those. Now, I could see doing that, but not on the same day as doing castration. I don't think my stomach could take it. Liver is another one of those things that no matter how many different ways I have tried it over the years, I just cannot do it. I've even tried putting it in capsules when my iron levels were really low, but I just couldn't stand the taste of like any burp or anything. I know that sounds really gross, but it's really gross to me anyways. I know lots of people love liver, and good for you if you love liver. It's just definitely not for me. I do have a beef heart and a beef tongue in the fridge. Tongue is one of those things that I don't have a lot of experience with. I have done beef heart quite a bit before. Usually I'll just cut it up into cubes and use it the same way I would use stew beef. But I think I'm gonna try making some jerky because I have a friend who swears by beef heart jerky. So I'm gonna try that. And then with the tongue, I wanna try to make some tacos because apparently it tears apart really nicely. And I can kind of imagine that with the way the fibers would go on a tongue. Because I didn't grow up eating organ meat or any of the unusual cuts of meat, mostly just steaks and roasts, stew beef, things like that. It's just not something that I'm super familiar with or that my palate is used to. So it's just gonna take a little bit of adjusting to it, I'm sure. Okay, there we go. And you can see how much washed off of that. So now I'm gonna rinse this off really well. Okay, I'm gonna get my stove going over there so that it's nice and hot. And I'm going to use butcher knives instead of my kitchen knives to do this. So I've just cut it in half and I'm just gonna fry it up like this. I'm just gonna wait till my pan gets hot over here. And then we will cut off the extra fat from the cheeks here. These are Zwilling knives. I just ordered these ones from Cabela's because I needed some new butcher knives. I think I mentioned this in another video and somebody said that they'd had their butcher knives for 15 years or something like that. I've only had mine for maybe 7, but I am terrible at maintaining my knives, just terrible. All right, so let's pop these in. Okay, let's run down to the pantry and grab some bone broth, and I'll give you an update on where we're at with the pantry because it's starting to look pretty. Look at these bare shelves. Oh, I do have a little bit of lard left. I thought I was completely out of lard, but apparently not. Still quite a few pickled products left that we need to get through. A little bit more chicken, lots of fish. Everybody didn't really love the canned fish, so I probably won't do that again. I only have 2 jars of beef broth left. All right.
We could get dry. That smells really good.
Yeah, it does smell good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And we'll add a little bit of salt to that. a couple of bay leaves, and we'll cover this up and put it in the oven for a few hours. Okay, now we're gonna clear up this. All of these chunks are gonna go out to my dogs, and then we will make some ice cream. I think I'm going to make raspberry swirl ice cream using some of the jam, since I have so much of it still left in the pantry. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is to use some of my milk, and this was actually from this morning's milking, so the cream hasn't really risen up to the top yet, but that's fine because I actually prefer to have my ice cream more milk than cream. I just find it's a little bit too rich if it's mostly all cream. And my kids like it this way too, so I'm gonna use 4 cups of whole milk with a little bit of cream. And you can use this recipe no matter what kind of ice cream maker that you have. With this ice cream maker, I can actually put it right in hot, but I am going to cool it down a little bit because it does help the machine not have to work quite as hard. If I put it in just hot into the ice cream maker, it still works. It's just a little bit more grainy than it is if I allow it to cool off first. So I have 4 and a bit cups of milk, and I'm going to add 4 egg yolks. Whoops, that did not work out the way that I had intended. Let's try that again. I'm going to just add egg yolk, not egg white. So most ice cream recipes that you'll find will say to heat up your sugar and your milk mixture and then add your egg yolks in slowly and whisk them when it's already hot. But I actually find it works better to add them in cold, whisk it really well, and then just heat it up on the stove until it starts to thicken a little bit. It's way less chunky because oftentimes with a custard like this, it will suggest, wow, I am not doing a very good job of this right now. It will suggest that you strain it to get kind of any chunks of egg that didn't mix in really well, and doing it this way, I haven't found that to be an issue at all. Anywhere that I can save steps, I try to. So I'm only gonna add 1/3 a cup of sugar to this because I'm going to be adding jam that has sugar in it. Already, I don't need to add much sugar. So now I'm going to whisk this all up really well to whisk all those eggs in before I put it onto the heat. Now we're gonna put this onto the heat and we are going to heat it up, but we are not going to let it boil because if we do, it will curdle. And we're going to let this cook for approximately 8 minutes. Again, just to the point of almost a simmer, but not quite. So we're just about there, starting to thicken up a little bit. I love this new measuring cup. Look at how huge that is and how beautiful it is. This is another Pioneer Woman one, and it came from the same person that sent me that cutting board. Isn't it beautiful? I love it so much, and it is the perfect one for cooling off the ice cream custard. It's metal, so I don't have to worry about it cracking or anything. And it is literally the perfect amount. And the other awesome bonus of this is it has a lid, so I can lid it up and then I can allow this to cool. I usually just pop it in the freezer for an hour to cool down before I put it in my ice cream maker. Okay, I need to find my hat so that we can go outside. It's very sunny out there right now. Oh, I have something else to show you that I realized that I hadn't shown you in the last few videos. So about 5 months ago now, maybe even a little bit longer, we butchered our boar because we'd made the decision back then to get out of pigs, and we decided to butcher the boar so that we didn't end up with any more piglets. Well, it turns out that probably the day before he got into the pen with one of our sows, and she was actually a young sow that we had decided not to breed because she was the runt of the litter. So So needless to say, about 5 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago now, I came out to the barn to find a litter of piglets. Now, I did know she was bred by that point because I was able to tell before that. So I did know that we were going to end up with piglets. Thankfully, though, she did a really great job. Even though she was so small, she only ended up having 5 piglets, which isn't surprising because she was small, but she did an excellent job with them. So now I have 5 piglets that I just listed this morning for sale. We had talked about maybe keeping 2 of them for over the summer and butchering them in the fall, but we've actually made the decision to sell all of them and just be out of pigs altogether. So moving forward, unless something changes dramatically, we will be buying all of our pork, which is going to be a little bit weird, but also, to be honest, kind of a relief. So these are the piglets, a really nice little litter of piglets. Only 1 black one in that litter. Cutie pies. This was our winter pig pen. Normally in the summertime, we would put our pigs out on pasture, but we've decided to convert this into another pen for the sheep. We have our meat birds out on pasture now, so we have this chicken fencing that goes all the way around here. Just looks like this close up, and it's electrified. And then this just has a little opening cut in it so that they can get in out of the sun, but they can free range all around here. And then once they eat this grass down, we'll move them up over there. Happy chickens. My garden is all planted finally. And as you can see, it is also very infested with weeds. The crop garden up here is also planted that has onions, carrots, and potatoes in it. We have a ton of weeds in my garden, but I've decided this summer I'm just not going to worry about it or stress about it. Definitely going to be out weeding. I actually really enjoy weeding, but I'm not going to let myself be too uptight about it. We do have 4 degrees Celsius coming for 2 days, so I'm going to be covering up all of these squash that are really frost sensitive with some frost blankets just to keep them from freezing. Last year, June 10th, so this time exactly, we had a killing frost, and that was the first time in 7 years that we had had a frost that late, and now it looks like it might happen again. It doesn't look like it's going to be quite as bad as it was last year, but bad enough that I want to cover them and protect them anyway. The garden this year has definitely been a little bit challenging. So we had that really crazy heat wave. I'm just rolling up the sides of my high tunnel here. But we had that really crazy heat wave. Then my ducks got into my garden. The one thing about the garden though, is that it somehow ends up surviving anyway. Like, okay, so maybe some things won't grow. Maybe I'll end up not having a great potato crop this year, or the squash will freeze or something like that. But usually it works out okay in the end. I've learned to have a little bit more faith with my garden as the years have passed, because even when it seems like everything's going wrong, it still ends up being okay in the end. So this is a good example of it being okay. Look at how beautiful these tomato plants are looking. They're just looking absolutely fabulous. I spent hours yesterday weeding and heavily pruning all my Amish paste tomatoes. So they're looking a little bit worse for wear just because they went into a bit of shock with how aggressively I pruned them, but within a few days, they'll look fantastic. I'm just gonna run up and turn the drip irrigation system on so that I can show you how it's working. I am very happy to say it is actually working. It does require a bit of maintenance just because we have all that silt that I've been talking about. Dan actually went up and pumped the spring out the other day, and so we're having way more flow and less silt than we were having before. So we put on an extra filter. Let me show you. So see all that silt? So all I have to do with this is open it up and it flushes out this filter. Then I can close it up again and it's good to go again. So it runs through this filter. This one is a heavy filter, so I can actually just take this out and rinse this off, Then we have a finer filter over here and an ultra fine filter over here. And as you can see, it's working awesome. I love it so much. These just tucked in underneath my tomato plants there. So all I have to do is set my timer for an hour and then I come down and flush that again. I usually run it for about 2 hours a day and that seems to be working really well. So I am going to harvest some of this basil to go make some basil iced tea. So when I'm harvesting basil, I always take the top and then I go down to where their first branch is coming off and then I snap that off and then these are gonna grow up again for me. And I can usually harvest basil like this for most of the summer. These are, I think they were called Arctic Rose micro dwarf tomatoes. So these ones were micro dwarf, these two. And then this one is a dwarf and I cannot believe how much better they're doing than they did under the grow lights in the house. They just look gorgeous. What a gorgeous day. See what I mean about it looking like Ireland? It's so green and beautiful. Oh man, we're gonna be able to hay in a couple weeks. We only get one cut of hay here because we don't irrigate and we usually cut in July. Look at how beautiful the pak choi is looking. Lettuces, so beautiful. Going to be eating kale soon. Oh, yum. Look at this. This is a garlic scape, and I adore garlic scapes. Fried in butter with some scrambled eggs. So good. So this, if you were to let this go, it would actually form a flower and garlic seeds on the top, and you can actually plant those. But they grow much bigger and hardier if you just plant from the garlic that you pull out of the ground. So most people just harvest these. And last year I made garlic scape salt and it's really, really good. This smells really good. So this is the oxtail soup. I'm just gonna give my hands a quick wash. I think what I'm going to do, because I have my potatoes and carrots all chopped here, along with some onion. So there's 2 onions, 10 potatoes, and 10 carrots. And I'm going to transfer the stock into this larger pot to cook, because I'm not gonna be able to fit everything that I wanna fit into this. So we'll dump our broth into here along with our cooked meat. Add our potatoes and our carrots, our onion. And I'm just gonna pop this back in the oven and cook it until this evening for dinner. So let's see what we can get off of here. Okay, here it goes. I have to admit to being just a tiny little bit grossed out. And it's more just because of how unappetizing that looks. So it doesn't look like just a hunk of meat, right? It's all sinewy and bony. So to me, this tastes more like rich, definitely fattier tasting. It's not bad, it's just not as good as a T-bone steak. I'm eating tail. And I have to say, I'm not entirely sold on the idea. Definitely not sold on it. It's all right. Yeah, it does smell good. From the perspective of making a really good, rich bone broth, I think this is great, but I'm actually not going to peel. There's not a ton of meat left on those bones anyway. All of that meat off, just because I can tell you right now, I know my kids are not going to like the texture of that. However, all of the other meat, the cheek meat and the butcher's cut that I put in here will be just fine. I'm just gonna run down to the garden and grab some celery, some thyme, and some parsley to add into this. All right, our ice cream is now done. And And I'm gonna bring you down to show you because I think it's kind of frozen in the ice cream maker right now. So I added some raspberry jam and it's delicious. My one critique of this particular ice cream maker is once it goes to the freeze setting, so it'll do its churning and everything, and then while it's sitting there waiting for you to take it out and put it into the freezer, it does a freeze setting. And it freezes so solidly that it is really difficult to get this canister part out of it. That wasn't too bad because I did let it warm up just a little bit before I showed you guys. So once my kids come home, they are going to demolish this off in one sitting. So I'm actually just gonna put this whole entire thing into the freezer. So I did make our iced tea. I decided to use a gallon jar just so I could make lots of it. I used 4 tea bags, about 3/4 of a cup of organic cane sugar, and then like a fistful of basil. When I was looking this up, some people add the crushed basil leaves, so they just crush it in their fist and then throw it in once the iced tea has actually been chilled. And some people put it in when it is hot, the way that I did. So I'm assuming that putting it in with the hot water is probably going to make the basil flavor a little bit stronger. But it's really good. That's really tasty, in fact. I think I might just throw a little bit more basil in there. I'll be curious to see what my kids think of it because it is, you can definitely taste the basil in it. I really like it, but I feel like it's more of an adult flavor than a kid flavor, but we'll see what they think when they come home. It's good. I'm just going to head down to the garden and do a little bit of weeding. The ground is perfect for weeding right now because it rained all day yesterday. If you ever find it's difficult to weed, water your garden during the night and then weed the following day, and it makes it so much easier to pull your weeds out. So I'm gonna go down and do that, and then when we come up at supper time, I'll let you know what the kids thought of the iced tea and what we all thought of the oxtail soup. So I'll see you again shortly. Okay, so we are back. The kids are sitting down at the table to eat. What do you guys think?
Okay.
Okay? What about you?
Has a weird taste.
Has a weird taste? You like it?
Yes.
What do you think? No? Okay, so I don't know if it's actually knowing what it is that's causing the problem because the kids are really grossed out by where the tail sits on the body of the steer. They think that's really disgusting. But it's definitely a richer flavored soup. I personally really like it. I think it makes a really nice broth. Will it be something that we include in our regular recipe rotation? No, but it wasn't a total fail. And okay, but what did you guys think of the iced tea?
It was really good.
That was good.
Okay, the iced tea and the ice cream. Okay, really good. Okay, did you like the raspberry flavor? Yeah? Okay, so 2 wins and 1. It's tasted like cherry? Really?
It tasted like strawberry.
Oh, well, that I don't feel like that's too bad. We have 2 recipes that the kids really enjoyed and 1 that they're kind of on the fence about. I hope that you enjoyed today's video, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.